Hello, friends, and welcome to Season 14 of the Igniting Imagination podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Greenwood, and I'm delighted to be back and have so been looking forward to this season. We are visiting with incredible faith leaders. It is clear that through them, God is doing a new thing, a beautiful and powerful thing. It is our deep hope that their stories, these conversations, will inspire you, ignite what is already in you, the courage and creativity we all need right now to bring about more love and generosity and belonging so that all people can flourish. For such a time as this, dear friends, I am so excited for this season, in large part because my co-host is Reverend Amy Butler. Welcome, Amy.
Lisa, it's so fun to be here with you and be having these conversations. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for saying yes. I'm really looking forward to it. If you didn't hear Amy on our podcast in season 10, please do go back and listen. It's a meaningful conversation about her book, Beautiful and Terrible Things: Faith, Doubt, and Discovering a Way Back to Each Other. We can't recommend it highly enough. And by the way, Amy, it's currently at number 1 on the Christian Professional Growth list on Amazon. Congrats.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. It's such a good and important read right now. Let me share a little bit about Amy before we jump in. The Reverend Dr. Amy Butler is the founder of the philanthropic initiative called Invested Faith. She previously served as the first woman senior minister of the Riverside Church in New York City, senior pastor of Calvary Baptist Church in D.C., associate pastor at St. Charles Avenue Baptist Church in New Orleans, and intentional interim minister at National City Christian Church in D.C. Pastor Amy holds degrees from Baylor University, the International Baptist Theological Seminary, and Wesley Theological Seminary. She's a mother of 3 children and is currently serving as senior pastor of Community Church in Honolulu. She is an innovator, an entrepreneur, a mentor, a friend, and an inspiration to many. Amy, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Oh, thanks. Beautiful. Thank you for that introduction.
So I want to have a little bit of a conversation before we intro our first guest. I want to do an overview of the season for our listeners, but also for you and I to have a little bit of a conversation. Our theme is healing the world through new models of ministry. And so let me just start with that theme, which is really pulling on some of the language that you use at Invested Faith. So tell us what comes to mind for you when you hear healing the world through new models of ministry.
Well, I want to just say thank you for having the courage to make this your theme for this season, because I think as institutional communities of faith, and I say this as a pastor myself, we are facing such a time of transition. And what we do during these times of fear and instability is we try to apply old solutions to new problems. And I think you and I probably would both say across the board that is not working for us.
Yeah.
So we have the great task now of inviting our people into finding the courage that it takes to come up with new solutions for new problems, and then to give them the theological framework and the language to hang around those new solutions and say, it's okay, it's okay. You talk during this season a lot about what is the new thing that God is doing. And our issue is, can we embrace that new thing and have the courage to try something different? That's the question I think we're facing right now in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. We often say, how do you learn what no one can teach you?
Yeah.
In other words, we haven't been in this moment before, and it is remarkably different from where we've been
Yes.
in a number of ways, and we could have a whole other conversation about that. And so, part of what we do is we pay attention to what God is doing, and we ignite our own imagination through some of the cool innovations and experiments that other people are doing. And then we try things. We
Yeah,
just try them, right? And so our hope this season is to really highlight some of those stories. And our guests are incredible leaders. They are faithful entrepreneurs who every one of them has been named an Invested Faith Fellow. So, will you tell us a little bit about Invested Faith and what it means to be an Invested Faith Fellow?
sure. 5 years ago, started a foundation called Invested Faith, which serves as a legacy tool for churches at their completion. So, as you know, over 100,000 churches will close before the end of this decade. And many congregations are facing, the question of what to do with their assets. Having been the pastor of historic congregations who are facing these questions, I've seen developers come in and take advantage of congregations. And it's my deep, deep belief that all of the baptisms and all of the weddings and all of the moments when my life was falling apart, um, the legacy of those things does not end when the doors close on a building. And so Invested Faith was originally envisioned as a legacy tool for churches at their completion and has been used by many churches who have gifted some of their assets to build this foundation. But one of the things, Lisa, that surprised me so much about Invested Faith has been these faith leaders who I've met in this process. So, to become an Invested Faith Fellow, you have to be rooted in faith. And by that, we mean where there is good, there is God, trying to keep it as wide as possible for
Mm.
God's Spirit to work in the wild and wonderful ways that she does. We want to see a different model of funding than our traditional pass the plate, write a grant. So we're looking for businesses that either are producing income or have the potential to produce income. And I truly believe by now that churches that will be alive in 15 years have a social enterprise built into them. And the third thing is we're looking for people who are challenging unjust systems.
Mm.
Charity is good. Um, Justice might be better for this moment. And
Mm.
so we're looking for people who are just not afraid to say, this system is broken. I'm going to build a business that does well and does good at the same time. And what I've found for my own personal faith journey is meeting these invested faith fellows has given me courage to consider the new thing that God is doing and to say it's okay to try something different.
Yeah.
And the secret about all of this is I'm the luckiest one in this whole story because every day I get to talk to these people who have the courage to step out and try something new.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about getting to know some of these folks that you have introduced us to. So I'm really excited.
Oh, you're going to love
So,
them.
yes. So, you also have a new book coming out. It's called Holy Disruption, a Manifesto for the Future of Faith Communities, which is an awesome title. I love Manifesto. Right? So you co-wrote it with Don Darwin Weeks, and I think, gosh, we'll have to get you both on the podcast to do a full episode on the book when it releases. But can you give us a little teaser and make the connection between your work through Invested Faith and the fellows and the birth of this book?
Sure. We chose the name Holy Disruption, a Manifesto for the Future of Faith Communities to be um, to grab people's attention and make them just a
Mhm.
little bit uncomfortable. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback like, why do you have to use
Disruption,
words like,
Manifesto.
yes, yeah. And so that was done on purpose, in the vein of being a holy troublemaker myself, along with Don Darwin Weeks, who is also a holy troublemaker. And this book came out of a conversation she and I were having over coffee, and she was just like, I'm in the church. I want the church to thrive. And making the connection between that and then the work of our fellows was like an aha moment for both of us. This is not like we choose the church or we choose social enterprise. It's
Mhm.
wow, we see this coming together both in the
Yeah.
stories of these fellows and in the theology that undergirds it. So
Mm.
the book is stories of a lot of our fellows, some of whom you'll
Mhm.
meet on this season, but also a theology for the future, like a hopeful theological framework by which we can
Mhm.
talk about what the church is and what the church is becoming. Um,
Mm.
it's a 6-week workbook for churches and other faith communities who are thinking about their future. And so it's hopefully going to be a helpful resource for churches that are asking some of these questions and are willing to engage new ideas.
Great. Can't wait. Can't wait. So, our guest today is Katie Kenyon. Amy, can you share a little bit about Katie?
Oh, sure. You all are going to love Katie Kenyon. She is the executive director of Village Green RVA in Richmond, Virginia. She is not only a dedicated community leader committed to providing healthy food accessibility and wraparound support for individuals and families in need, she also is a former family pastor. And
Mhm.
I met her first when she was serving actually on a church staff. She has a Master of Divinity degree, and she has this passion for bringing the church um, from inside the walls of the building to outside. And she
Mm.
has used the model of providing healthy food to partner with over 60 nonprofits in the city of Richmond and
Wow.
fill this little niche that wasn't being filled. One of the great stories that I love about what she does is they have a professional chef on staff that creates dinners every day, and anybody who needs to feed their family can go through and pay for a dinner and drive through, take it home, stick it in the oven. And when you do that, you're buying dinner for another family who can't afford to drive through it. And I just keep thinking, like, oh, when my kids were little, what I would have given for
Yeah.
something like that. Katie has a great personal story. She and her husband Danny have 4 children. They have a combined family, and they are foster parents through Richmond City Department of Social Services, and that influences a lot of the
Mhm.
work that Katie is doing. And if you follow Katie on social media, you will know that they have a brand new golden retriever puppy named Dolly, who she says will always love you.
That's beautiful. All right, let's listen to our conversation with Katie Kenyon. Hi, Katie. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Okay, I want to jump right in. I
Sure.
would love to hear a bit of your uh, faith story, your vocation, maybe some key points that brought you to this moment in your life.
Sure. Well, I label myself at this point as a recovering pastor. I was in church specific ministry for 20 years as a children and family minister. Went switched in my undergrad. I was going to be a teacher. All of a sudden, just felt this like very strong call to be in the church, even though I grew up not thinking as a woman I could be in the church. And had some great mentors at Carson Newman, now University, that taught me that if that's what I felt called to do, that I could do it, and gave me
Mhm.
the courage to go to divinity school. And it was there that I just found my call into family ministry, and I loved faith formation and starting at the beginning and really seeing people like have that spark and start understanding things at early ages and really like holistic care for the whole family. And
Mhm.
that's what got me into church work. And then 20 years after, I jumped into nonprofit work as my ministry. So that's what got me here.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I'm so glad to hear it comes from a place of deep calling and that there were some folks along the way that encouraged you when you saw obstacles to that. Tell us about that transition to nonprofit work.
Yeah. So I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I had been at my last church for 10 years. And I found myself suddenly a single mother with two young children, with foster children from the Department of Social Services. And one day I was off on I was off on Fridays, and I was mowing my lawn, and my lawnmower broke, and I was like, this is it. This is what's gonna take me out. Like, I don't have the money to buy a new one. I don't have the car to fix it, like, to take it to get fixed. I don't even have the money to fix it. And I was even a person of means at the time. I mean, my family lives a few hours away. I couldn't just call my dad, And I just sat there on the front porch, and I was like, This lawnmower is gonna take me out." And as a minister of the church, I should have had a community where I could have picked up the phone and called someone. And in that moment, I didn't feel like I did. And I turned to go inside and looked in the fridge and was like, I don't even have the capacity to boil pasta right now for my children. Like, I can't do it. And I thought, if somebody handed me an already made meal right now, I could live to see another day. Like, I could do this. And that really propelled me out of the church walls. I was like, I have to do something about this. There can't be a me sitting on her porch right now, like, thinking she can't do it. And it was in that moment that I went to go seek after community that I wasn't finding in the church, that I could help, create something that could really wrap around someone in a tangible, meaningful way that I wasn't getting where I was.
Yeah.
Katie, could you take us through how Village Green RVA works and
Yeah.
and how, like, you saw the needs in the community and then created this new model to meet that very poignant need that you just articulated?
Yeah, so around that time, I met someone through someone, one of those, like, small town, well, we're not a small town, but a small city feel where someone knew someone, and they had just actually put $4 million into renovating an old church that wasn't being utilized to house a nonprofit that they wanted it to focus on healthy food, and that's all they knew. And so around the time that I'm sitting on my porch about to fall apart, I meet this person that had a connection with this church that really wanted to make a difference in the community by housing a nonprofit that it really had nothing to do with them, just like a lease situation, but they knew that there was a need in the community that they couldn't meet, and they wanted to give a nonprofit the opportunity to do it. And so I was brought on and filled out the 501c3 paperwork my first day, and really figured out how to create this community that I so knew was needed in this space, but inside a church, but really outside the church. So it's been a really interesting combination of being in the walls of the church, but really doing the work outside. So that's how we started, and it just grew from there. We're about a year old, and we went from one community partner to 65 in a year, and from 20 meals a week to 2,000 meals a week, just because the need is so great. And, we found accessible food to be lacking in our area.
So tell us how it works. Like, if tell us how it works. If I needed a meal in Richmond, how would I connect with Village Green RVA?
So at first, we didn't know what to do because we are not accessible. We're not on a bus line. And we're in Chesterfield County, which is outside the city limits. And so we were like, well, how do we get people here? And then we realized, well, that's not what we do. So we figure it out. So we work on a partnership model. So we have around 60 nonprofits or government agencies that they're doing good work already. They have their own programming. They have their own participants. They have all the things that they need, except they're missing food accessibility or space. And so we've really been able to use this as kind of like some resources that they don't have to jump through hoops to get. So we have, for instance, like one of our partners is called Real Life. They work with people in recovery. They have 11 recovery houses, and those recovery houses are lacking in healthy food support. And so they have someone that comes every week and picks up meals and groceries for their 11 houses. And it really is like an extra resource that they couldn't provide for their participants, but that we can help do. So, and we also have classrooms, workstations, free Wi-Fi and printing, a community center, children's areas. So we're really able to let our partners use our space for free, give them the food resources for free. And really, it just helps everybody do what they do best. We don't have to create anything because we're not the experts at the specific things they're doing. So the only time we have created something is when they needed it. Like all of our departments of social services needed wraparound support for foster and kinship families. And as you know, that was really important to me. So we created a once a month program for kids to be dropped off in care with people that are trained in trauma-informed care. And we do programming and food. Then we send them home with a meal, gives their caregivers some time off. So we also created a senior cafe once a month. And all of our partners that have seniors can invite their participants to come, and the community can come too, grab breakfast, have some programming, take lunch when they leave. So those are our main programs we're doing ourselves. But otherwise, we're hosting 200, 300, 400 people a week just in programming for other organizations that need the space and resources.
Okay, I have so many directions I want to go. So,
Yeah, we don't really exist. So it's really hard to kind of wrap your brain around it at the beginning.
So, I want to go back to that. Like, there were pieces that were in place, a deep sense of calling, wanting to do God's work in the world and help people be formed and shaped. And so there was that. There was this, you felt in your family like a very personal experience of the need as a mom.
Yes.
And then there was this building, and there was a space, like a possible venue, like to actually house the work. Okay, what, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 things did you personally have to learn? Like you're a pastor in a church, and now suddenly you're like, oh, and now I'm a founder and an executive director of a nonprofit meeting this need. Like,
I've had to learn everything, literally everything. I mean,
so what were some of
everything.
the first things that you had to do? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first thing I had to do was even figure out what the need was. And I knew how I felt personally, but I was just listening all around me to figure, I didn't want to just like bulldoze in and create something that wasn't necessary. And so I did a lot of listening. I met with so many community leaders. I mean, the first like probably 4 or 5 months, I was never in the office because I was just in Richmond, listening to what people had to say, like figuring out where the holes were, trying to figure out who had the programming and the support, but needed the extra support, especially with food. I mean, we are a Feeding America site, so we have access to food at like 9 cents a pound. But if you don't focus on food, you can't be a partner. And so there's all these organizations that needed food, but that wasn't their main focus. So just kind of like connecting dots is something that I had to do at the beginning and learn. And then I really had to learn everything about running a nonprofit, which is like the clerical side and the grant writing side. And, even as little as like, all right, who's going to be our donor database and who's going to do that? Like, it is a lot of work. And I've always I haven't ever been a lead pastor. So I went from being a support pastor to having 3 full-time staff in a very short amount of time, and to do all of this while simultaneously building out a program. I've learned something new every day. So, and I would come home, and my husband's also a nonprofit. And like one day I was just like bawling my eyes out. He's like, "What is wrong?" And I was like, "I am moving so slowly. Like there's so much left to do." And he was like, "Have you seen nonprofits around you at all?" And I'm like, "No, not really." And he's like, "Well, they move slowly, and you're doing more right now than some do in like 10 years. You need to cut yourself some grace on this." So, but when you recognize a need and you know that feeling of needing what you're trying to create, then there's an urgency. And there was a freedom for me, like, because the church to me was not a place of freedom. I went through a lot in the church, working for the church, going through, I called Amy once when I was on vacation at the beach, when I was going through my very public divorce, and just like, what do I do? And So when I got out and was able to be the leader I always wanted to have, and was able to, have this freedom to really meet needs without any strings attached, it just, it felt like I needed to run. And so learning how to have a much healthier boundary, and much healthier pace has been something that's, I'm still working on. So,
One of the cool things about these conversations that we get to have is we are making the connection or trying to make the connection between the theological themes that have undergirded our work as pastors in the church and this changing institution, of which you are building a new iteration. Can you tell us a little bit about the theological ideas that are undergirding your work? Because once a pastor, always a pastor, in a way,
yes.
right?
Well, I think one thing that has kept me kind of like my baseline is the idea of shalom, like not just peace, but of like well being, like of
Mm,
wholeness. And that is pretty much every day, like what I start with, what I end with, how I breathe through it. And also just like the gospel of abundance for me. Like I grew up in a scarcity model and
mm,
it kept going into my adulthood, and um just to focus on the abundance of God is something that was different for me, and something that has really helped me into this work, into like how that I view what we do and how we do it. So both those things have been kind of like the mainstays for me as I move through my day.
What do you say to people who would challenge this and say, like, this is not the church. This is not the work of the church. This is not the work of God in the world.
Well, I would say that in the past year, I have felt like I have done more of God's work than I ever did before.
Mm,
I mean, if you think about, I mean, the least of these, the widows and orphans, I mean, literally anyone that we were called to serve and love. And I've been able to literally do it with my hands. We're not talking about it. We're not, um, talking to like two people. We're not doing anything except like meeting needs. Like filling up someone's plate has been the fellowship that I've always wanted, that I didn't necessarily get in the traditional walls of the church. And I'm out in the world every day. Like that to me is what Jesus did, and that's who I follow. So I just can't imagine the church looking any different than what I'm doing now, even though this is a new way of doing it for me too.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
You felt called to formation, to helping people be formed in their faith. So, how is that calling getting lived out now?
Well, I mean, I think that I just went from individual people to a whole system. So like the
Mm,
formation of people moved to the formation of a system that could meet people with love. And so formations take on a new meaning for me now, but it also, formation to me was also meeting people where they were
mm,
and helping them in whatever way that I could. And I do that every day now. Like I meet people exactly where they are, and there's nothing that I want to do except for create a community in which they can feel seen, they can feel worthy, they can feel their needs are met, and that's what I did in the church too. It's
yeah.
just a different way of doing it. And honestly, I come back to freedom all the time too. Like I feel so free to meet people where they are, and
Mm,
free to say what and live out what I need to, so that people feel like they do belong and they do have a place at this table. It's very much the same, but very much different than what I used to do. So,
yeah. It strikes me that when we talk about formation, I've heard it said we're formed all day long, every day, right? It's just a matter of what is forming us. And when you say you are helping to create community and you are in fact experiencing community, that those relationships are formative. Like people are experiencing grace and love and healing. And isn't that what we hope people will be formed in?
Yes.
Is grace and love and healing. Yeah.
Yes. There's
Beautiful.
been a lot of healing at Village Green in my own life. Just to,
Mm.
I had this sign in my dining room for forever, and it said, "There's always room." And I like truly believed that. And I have carried that into Village Green too. There's always room at the table, and you belong at the table. And isn't that what we say? Isn't that what we say in the church too? But
Yes.
at the same time, like, I want someone to come to the table, but also get fed. The gift of food, the gift of belonging. These are, don't just sit here. Like, you don't have to just sit here. You deserve more than just sitting. You deserve the nourishment and the belonging. And that's what we're trying to create at Village Green.
Mm.
Mm. So you've experienced this tremendous growth, and the beauty of finding a little niche that wasn't being met. That that is what I love about so many invested faith fellows. Like, find the little spot and then just plug right in. Tell us what's next for Village Green RVA and for you.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, so we are outgrowing our space rapidly. So, the church has kind of been a jumping off point for us. Like, I couldn't have started this if I hadn't had that space. But I really believe that this could be a model that churches use to help nonprofits like me get started and get growing until they run out of room.
Mm.
This church that we're in right now has had a commercial kitchen and classroom space and a community center or a fellowship hall, whatever you want to call it. Um, but I mean, we were in it for a year. We're going to be in it for a year and a half before we're too big, and we'll be moving on. But I just think about all the empty church buildings that could be used to create this space for people to meet needs. Maybe not forever, like us. We're, going to be moving on, but then what occupies that space next, and how can the community be supported within the walls of the church, even if it's not the church that is technically doing it. So what's next for us is we are continuing to grow and looking for a downtown space on a bus line so that we can be more accessible, and getting a bigger kitchen and more space for resources and programming. So we're probably in September doing a big move. So
That's big. That's big.
yes.
You've touched on something that I would love to go deeper into, and that is kind of this partnership, if you will, or collaboration between nonprofit and nonprofit space and church space. And I mean that literally like space and place, but I also mean sort of the arena, the work of the church and nonprofits. And so can you talk a little bit about, and let me say this, what that's been like for you, but also you have a vantage point of having been in the church and now in the nonprofit space. What sort of learnings, wisdom would you offer about what you see in terms of the potential there, the possibilities for collaboration?
That's such an
Yeah.
insightful question, because, like, I don't know any church that is not asking these questions. Yeah. Tell us, Katie.
Yeah, well, it all goes back to like the view of abundance for me too, because I know, and I've worked in many churches. I'm not specifically talking about one, but the almost hoarding of resources.
Mm.
So that, we always made sure we were taken care of, or if we randomly wanted to have a Thursday night event, that we made sure that we were going to have the space to have it. Where this completely flips it around and makes it
Mm.
so, you have space. No, the community isn't coming to you. So what can you do to connect with the community? And honestly, like, when we first started, no one knew what Village Green RVA was. And so the first volunteers we ever had were from the congregation where we lease our space from. And they were really able for the first time to talk to people in their community, because the community wasn't coming to them on a Sunday morning.
Okay.
But they were coming to them to Village Green and coming inside their building, and they had the opportunity I mean, not a bait and switch. That's not what I'm suggesting, but they did have the opportunity to experience community for maybe the first time. And that just to be able to show the world that, like, yes, we have resources, and yes, we want them for you too, is a huge opportunity. I feel like for churches, especially churches that have the space. Like, think about how many empty classrooms and kitchens that are sitting around the United States right now that could be used for good that aren't being used. So if the church doesn't want to or can't figure out how to create this community, that you can bring in a nonprofit that is starting any kind. I mean, we probably have 60 partners that would have loved to have had this space before we did. So there are people that are wanting space and needing it so that they can actually meet people's needs in tangible ways that maybe the church can't do yet. And maybe this is a bridge to be able to do
I have a feeling your phone is going to be ringing off the hook
that.
after people hear about this. What advice would you have for leaders who are thinking about how to use space or how to set out in a new course to make a positive difference?
Yeah, well, that's why we named it Village Green RVA, because I really do think it could be a replicatable model. It could be replicated. This model could be replicated. There we go. I have envisioned Village Green CLT or ATL, or there could be opportunities all over for this to be a play. And we named it the Village Green because that's traditionally where people came to find community. The church was there, the school was there, the food was there. People came to meet other people's needs and to get their needs met. And isn't that what you want the church to be? A place where people gather to find community. So I am making this up as I go. So I have not great advice, but what I do know is you have to listen. You have to actively listen to the community around you and figure out what it is, what the resource is that you have that you can gift to the world, whatever it is. For Richmond and successful food, and we have great resources around us that we needed the food where you could take the lid off and start eating it, and that's where we have found our place. But you can create community off of any need, but you have to listen. You have to actively listen, and then not go off and create something that's not needed. You have to listen and meet the actual need that's there.
Beautiful. So we have one last question that we're asking all our guests this season. It's drawing from that Isaiah passage that says, "Do not consider the things of old. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it?" Right? And so what is an old thing that maybe we ought not consider anymore? And what is a new thing that you see God doing that is springing forth?
So I think that the idea of doing God's work does not have to look like traditional ministry.
Mm.
And perhaps it does. It did to me for a long time. So perhaps it does for your listeners too. God's work can be in a community fridge or a table or in a classroom or, a pop-up program where people are getting what they need. Like, we have to stop thinking that God's work is when people come to us and they hear what we have to say. Like, sometimes God's work is us going and listening to what they have to say. And then that's where transformation and community lie. So, I mean, it seems like cliche to say, like, it's outside the church walls, but technically
Mhm.
Village Green is inside the church walls, but it's outside thinking of the church walls. So I really do think that the more we think about God's work, the more we should be open to listening to the world around us, and understanding that God's work might be outside and might be within our midst already, and we just need to answer what it is that need is to be met.
Yeah. Beautiful. I'm so grateful for your sharing your story with us today. And I'm so inspired and hopeful. So thank you, Katie.
Katie, it's
Glad to
so
be
great
here.
to see you always. Thanks for your work.
Yeah, thank y'all so much for letting me talk about Village Green, and we're obviously really passionate about what we do and how we connect with the church in this way.